Welcome back to the channel. So this is another reloaded for 2025, which I've been doing. I've got a few more to do as well. So this is an interesting one. It just shows the Boomerang here from Special Hobby. A very difficult kit. Now, I did this one because it was asked of me as a commission build. Took a bit too much on at the time, I think, but got it done. Happy with it. And a notorious kit for being extremely poor. And you'll see there's some photos. I was building this one actually in my in my shed at work through the winter, trying to do some of the main bits of building because I could sand it up easier out there. And it, looking back on it, it was very pleasant. At the time, I think I was probably a bit stressed out, but I'll let the original video speak for itself. These have all been up on the channel for a number of years in parts, but I've put them all together here in one part. So you'll see me talking about videos next Tuesday, and here's the next part. But this is all just brought together, and anything I'm talking about is in the past, I'm afraid. So hopefully you enjoy this, and let me know your comments down below. If not, at least it gives you a good place to start. And then we've got this small etch fret as well, which is produced by Edward, but sent out by MPM. So I mean, they've got Edward to produce this for them for this kit, and you've got a nice few small extras. Just again makes my life a lot easier because we've got coloured instrument panels. Coloured seat belts, so we can really spruce up the cockpit without having to do too much extra work. And this one does have a deadline, so that's good news. So I'm going to be cracking on with this one soon, and to make sure I get it done for when it needs to be done. Then we've got the instructions, which is Special Hobby, typical stuff. It's actually not too much of a taxing build, I don't think. There's a few things that I think are going to be an issue, but I think we'll get there. So you've got quite a few small parts going in for the cockpit and making up the sidewalls, and then we've got quite a detailed cockpit here as well when we're making up the tub with the sidewall frames. And as you can see, it's getting quite complex now. We're also running into the Resin engine that's included, but I'm certain, looking at this, that once you've got the cockpit, the engine and all the small details like that sorted, the build's going to come together quite quickly then, because already you're slotting straight into the wings, you're putting the whole tailplane system on, also then putting on under tanks in the undercarriage, and then you've got a plane then, pretty much. You just sort of put on a few small details. So I think the time's going to be spent in the cockpit and making sure that's all sorted before really having to worry about getting the major components together. I think that'll come together nicely. And then we've got the scheme there, which is the typical scheme of the time, which is over in the New Guinea area, and with a white tail. It's a very nice looking scheme, I think, myself. So it should be nice to tackle that one. We have got an errata sheet in this because there was a slight error on the decals, I believe, or something missing. I'm not actually sure what it is, but we've got it anyway. That's the good news. So where are we? Yeah, there's the errata sheet. It is for the one that we want to do, which is Home James. And there we go. So it's a little bit of a black outline to go around this horse. I think that's been misprinted. Yes, it is. Yeah, it's missing. So that's going to be fun to line that up. And then we've got MH and JH, which are white on the original sheet, and I don't think they're meant to be white by the looks of it. No, they're meant to be sky, I think. So that's what they've reprinted there, so that's very useful. Glad to have that before we start getting into it. And then there is a small photo etch fret, so we are given some extras in the form of seat belts and a few other parts like that, which again actually looks like that's printed by Edward as well. But we won't be using that, we'll be using the MPM set, which is a little bit fresher, a little bit more updated. Then we've got clear parts, which are pretty good. I can't see any scratches or anything on them. I'm not going to get them out, I'll leave them in there. But they're relatively straightforward, and we've got some side windows at the back. Then we've got a bag of resin, so this is a full engine with separate cylinder heads. We've also got, I don't know what that is. That might be an exhaust system. Most of this is for the engine. A few guns. Yeah, there's a couple of guns. Looks like a bomb. There's a resin seat and some resin wheels with some nice tread detail on it, actually. So all of that again is just going to help me push on with the build and get that sorted. I'm not going to have to worry about cleaning up seam lines on tyres and all of that sort of stuff. We can just get straight into it. There's a few bits in the bag. This kit could have obviously been sitting around for a little while, so that's the sort of thing to expect. We've got fine recessed panel lines, a little bit of texture over the airframe on the inside and outside. Feels a bit rough, but that actually, most of that's come off just by me rubbing it. A quick swipe with a sanding stick should sort that out. Heavy mould lines around the edges, but to be expected for Special Hobby. Then we've got the wing. It's actually quite a large aircraft for what it is. It's pretty much a Boomerang, I believe it's known as. So again, nice recessed panel lines, detail all through here. No issue with any of this really. Some of it's a little bit soft, I guess, but you know, it's there and we can work with that. And then we've got some small details here. I'm not actually sure, they seem to be all for something. That might be related to the engine, because that seems like rather a lot of pipes for anything else. And this is some of the small framing that goes for the cockpit and some of the side walls. Then we've got the last through. Just got the exhaust system, some of the framework again for the side walls. Propeller, which is going to take a little bit of cleaning up. Here are those wheels that we're not going to need to use, thankfully. Very flashy exhaust or cylinder ring there. That's pretty rough, if I'm honest. This is certainly the worst sprue. This is very flashy, very mould seam all over it. But again, you know, it is there. We'll just have to sand around it and work with it. So something a little bit different, and hopefully you'll join me for this build. And I'll put this all up in probably one go so you can see it at the end when it's done. I don't want to get distracted, but there we go. A different project, a commission build, something I've not done before. It'd be interesting to see how I feel about it at the end. We can talk about the psychology behind it, I think, once I'm done, whether it's a good idea, bad idea. But I think it's not much of a problem in the way I'm going to be going into this one. Famous last words, I think it will be quite a nice experience. So stay tuned for the next part. And we're back for the first update on the Special Hobby Boomerang. So I've managed to progress, obviously, since the last episode when we hadn't done anything. So what is going on here is we're just getting ready for the paint. So I'm going to be spraying this one with Mr. Colour lacquer thinners. It's their aircraft grade green, and that's 364. They've now released those separately, but they used to just be in a cockpit set. So how's it been so far? This is quite quickly becoming, well, it's got to be the worst kit I've ever come across for numerous reasons. I don't use that lightly because I have built many short run kits, and short run kits don't have to be bad just because they don't fit, but this is awful. I mean, there's just no planning gone into it. It's so vague. You've got so much guesswork. At least most, you know, kits, when you put the fuselage together, it actually is somewhere near it, and then the engine would fit. Whereas we've got this complete resin engine in here, which is just unnecessary. It would have been so much better to put. Well, I suppose arguably it is necessary. I've come to realise, because you can see through the wheel well, which I wasn't aware of. But then, how much can you see? You know, and this is the problem. So if we get it on here, you'll see that you should be able to get a little idea of what can be seen. Now, I'm not sure. I imagine this is right, because they've gone to enough detail with the rest of it that presumably you could see up the front of the back of the engine through the front of the wheel well. So this is the area we're talking about, up in there, and I think once the engine's in here, I mean, I will slide it in there, but it's not very helpful because it doesn't sit where it needs to be. It all needs to be glued in, really. You're going to sort of see that kind of affair in there, something like that, a bit like the FW190 D9, where you can see up through. So it's that sort of thing. But it's a very vague placement, and of course you've got the engine port. I've already snapped the spinner off, but that's fine, we can just use a bit of wire for that. it's all very tricky. And you've got the front of the cockpit here, which has got the bracing. Again, that it just doesn't fit at all. It's like two different parts there. I mean, it will, once it's all painted, you can glue it all together and place it in, and it'll finally be where it wants to be, and then you're going to see some of that sort of thing, a bit of that bracing there. I suppose the cockpit's going to be about there with the firewall, so you will see a little bit, and that's fine. And I'm not sure the person I'm doing this for is really going to worry too much about that. We're more concentrating on the exterior finish, so trying to do it a bit more like the PE400 that I did back along on the channel. So that's one thing. The next thing is, I mean, we've got the wing root issue. That's always going to be an issue, and it's not great in this. It can be better. It looks better than it is. See, it's not too bad, but once you've got the engine in there, that splits this a little bit. It's very hard to get that together at the front. So that's a few things. That's without even saying that the cockpit doesn't really sit in there at all, really. It kind of goes somewhere there. So you've got to just kind of hope that it ends up where it needs to be. You're focusing on getting the engine fixed to it and that sorted. Even the louvers, you would think that these would be fine. You know, a resin replacement specifically for this kit that Special Hobby, no doubt, or CMK have cast for that. Well, you had to glue this bit in and then bend it back and glue that bit in and bend it in again. I've actually chose just to break it off there so I can glue this bit in again, because where this one's nice and open, this one was warped, so it was flat at the top. On it goes. It's just that sort of thing. But it's, you know, it's not going to beat me. It's just, we're just getting on with it. But it's just one thing after another. The canopy masks that were supplied, I may have shown in the last one that these were already done, but I've covered them for the inside and the outside, so we're going to spray it on the inside and outside. As we've got the masks there, I usually just do it from the outside, and that's generally fine. These are the undercarriage legs, which has got tiny little attachment point there. So that's gonna, well, again, that doesn't even fit, because the hole for that, which is in here, which is that one that's full up with some white stuff there, that's just sanding dust, you can't get to it because there's this block in the front. There's no way, you just can't push it in there. Again, not an issue really, because I'll just re-drill out probably back here, use some Albion Alloys tubing so it's much stronger and support it. But it's just little things like that. I mean, why? I mean, just why? I don't understand it. The wings actually went together a lot better than I expected, to be truthful. They didn't really fit at all, you know, one was way over and they didn't come down on the trailing edge, and it is a little bit thick on the trailing edge, but ultimately it's fine, it's passable, it's okay. It's just the fuselage which is a nightmare, but we will get there. So the next thing now is I'm just about to hit this with the interior colour like I mentioned, and then when that's done I can go round the sidewalls and the instrument panels and the cockpit and put all of the coloured photo etch on, which is really going to start to bring it to life. We need to put some paint on the engine as well, so I'm going to spray this rear backplate, this like another firewall I suppose, so I'm going to spray that with the green all around and then just mask it around and pick out the engine. I do have to put some support rods, I guess they are, and then you've got the wiring loom that goes on, but there needs to be 2 rods off of each cylinder head. Again, they didn't fit. So, but anyway, right, we're not going to go round in circles, so that's just a quick update. And hopefully the next one you will see we will have a fuselage together, and hopefully if all goes well I'll actually have it attached to the wing, and once we get to that stage then we're well on the way, because there's nothing left on the sprues now. We've just got the horizontal stabilisers and the rudder to put together, which is just 2 pieces joined and sanded back through. Get all the photo etch on, so I'm really thinking in, because I've done a lot of test fitting with the fuselage halves, that in another probably a couple hours session I should be able to get all the weathering done on the cockpit and the fuselage halves together. That's when the fun begins. I've seen some builds where, you know, it goes together and you get a gap like that and then you have to fill it. I'm not so sure how we're going to end up. I've got these scoops here that well, blanks that go on the inside to blank off these scoops. I don't know how they're going to go either. They're going to be very difficult to put on, but we will get there one way or another. And as always, I will give you an update, may even record a little bit while we're actually building, so there's a bit more for the next one. So hopefully you're enjoying this series, and stay tuned for the next. We're back with another episode on the Boomerang, and we have had some progression, which I'm sure you'll be able to see from the last video, and just kind of getting there now. And we do need to be, because I've got about 3 weeks for the deadline on this, so I've made a conscious decision this weekend to actually plough on with this. So I mentioned I was having a week away, managed to get the wings on over that week, so that all set up nicely. Needed to do a little bit of adjustment along the way, and that wasn't too taxing. I had to really kind of move where the engine bulkhead there was. I just wanted to straighten it up, so managed to loosen the joint with some extra fin, wedge a cocktail stick in there and leave it there overnight to set up, and that's done the trick. Sanded the seams and checked those first off, and needed to put a bit of plasticard in here. But everything looks okay. Of course, it's easy to say that at this stage. You don't really know until you get primer on it, but that's my goal, hopefully, for potentially today. But I'm thinking, now I've got these horizontal stabilizers on, I'm thinking that they're a little bit gappy in places, so I might actually, instead of rushing it, just put the filler on and let it take its time to melt down and see how we go. The things I've been looking at now are, I've done the machine gun inserts. Now they were actually very nice resin pieces, and you do have the 2 holes here that have machine gun barrels moulded in, but as again the fit was very poor, so I've decided just to try and get that leading edge flush as opposed to anything. So I've sanded through where the hollow gun barrels were, with a view now to, once they're all sorted, to drill back in there and just use a bit of Albion alloys and that, tubing, and that will finish that off no problem. The main issue I've got now is around the light here. So you get a resin insert for the light, and you get the lamp there, which should show up hopefully. And typically the clear part that you've got, which is this kind of bent piece of clear plastic, it doesn't fit over the lamp at all. I'm not even sure it would fit in the gap if the lamp wasn't there. So I've just put it out to a couple of Facebook groups just to see what the consensus is, but I think what I'm probably going to have to do is just cut that lamp out, wedge a piece of clear plastic in, because where you've got sort of that thickness, if you know what I mean. I've got thicker, but that wouldn't quite fit, but I'm sure I could find something a bit chunkier in clear plastic and wedge it in there, smooth it out, wedge it in with super glue, pack the join, then cut it flush, sand it back and polish it. It will then look like a clear light, but we won't have the lamp. But again, I don't think the person that this build's destined for is going to worry about that. I think they'd rather just have what I've just mentioned. But I just wondered if I packed it with super glue or something like that, it might work. Also, I've already looked, there's a couple of suggestions about using clear film. So I'll make a decision on that and we'll see where we go. But overall, it's looking pretty good. So really, next step is going to be to get the airframe into a sound position, i.e. with all the seams sorted, all of the major parts on. That would include these louvers, so that's the next area to look at. I'm pretty happy with the front of the cowling there. I've sanded it off a little bit flush. There was a mention on one of the comments about having the fuselage out of line, but I don't think that can be possible because there's so many ways that it lines up. I think it's more likely that Special Hobby have actually moulded at the end poorly, so you know, having one a bit shorter. It's the same way that it tends to be everything they do. You get one tight wing join and one loose wing join, and there's no way around it because it lines up so many other ways. You've got to get the rib, you've got to get the tip and the back and everything. That it means that there has to be a gap there. I've got it on the DC2 as well, so that's my feeling. Cockpit's in there. It's a little bit rough around the edges, I suppose. I'm going to finish that off once I've done everything. So once the outside and the exterior of the model sorted, then I can touch up in there. There's a little bit of chipping in there I'm not massively happy with. We've also got an instrument panel that's going to go into this bit here. But overall, I'm relatively happy. Same can be said for the engine in there as well. It's not quite where I want it. but all the bits are in there, so I can finish off from the outside and make that look a bit smarter. And we should be there in no time. So I'm hoping when we get to part 3, we should have primer on, all the parts and major construction finished, and be ploughing on into the paint. I am going to look at the landing gear before I get too far into it as well, and get the hole drilled and make sure that's all good before we actually move on. So hopefully that's been an interesting part 2. A little bit shorter, but obviously there's not massive amounts to talk about. So stay tuned, and the next part should be up in a week's time. Okay, so it's time. It's Sunday again, so it's time for another Boomerang update. We have moved on quite considerably, as I'm sure you'll see from progress on the last video. And again, this is just a short one, just to say we're past the worst of it. I have had a nightmare rescribing. It's not my strong suit at all. I have huge problems with rescribing, but nevertheless, I've given it a go, and most of it looks okay. Thankfully, the seams are pretty much done. So again, spending the time to work on those seams and try and do everything correctly before getting into primer has helped a little bit. There's a couple spots I'm not very happy with. There's a little hole there and another one back here, but for the main part we're pretty much done. I did plough in some bad lines here and there, but this Special Hobby plastic is actually quite forgiving, because if I do this usually I would sand back through, then have to fill it with something, you know, minimal, like God, I got that on the brain, like the Perfect Plastic Putty, or even run Tamiya Extra Thin through, and that would help along the way. This has actually just disappeared by sanding it back, so that's me probably being not too heavy on the actual first pass. So that's the first bit. Yeah, and so the main thing you'll see is well, I suppose there's a lot going on, but the main thing you'll probably notice is the guns. Now, typical with this kit, those guns come as resin, and they've got the moulded on sort of shape for the leading edge of the wing. And there's a great big block of resin in there, and I mean, it's just hopeless trying to get that out. So my all I could really do was to cut the guns off, and then I've put a plaque of plasticard there, just the rough shape, and then drilled through, put a wire in, drilled into the actual gun, and then slotted that on, and then cut off the tips to the guns as well, and just put a tiny bit of Albion Alloys metal barrel on there. So that's worked quite well. The windscreen was an absolute nightmare. So I'll put some pictures up now showing you. It didn't fit at all, and I've had to fill that in with sprue, stretched sprue, and then blend that back. I'm not certain how accurate that is now, and it may actually make it sit up a bit, but that's all we could do really, so we're going to have to work with it, I'm afraid. The louvers have gone on now as well. They were almost a joke really. They're absolutely terrible. They come as resin and they don't fit at all, so I had to snap them in 2 or 3 places. Should have cut them, but I'd already glued them on, so I snapped them off, and then had to put them back on. And then I've just blended this in with super glue to make them flush at least, and then I'm just going to put a panel line in just ahead of them. I've done it there. I don't know how well you'll see that. Here, so that's all we're going to have to, that's the best I'm going to have to do. So it's a bit basic. I need to put one in this side, but it's just, yeah, no, we've got to get on with this one now, so I can't hang about. So you know, I can't be messing about with the small details like that. As long as it's close enough, that's what I'm happy with. I've put some details in here as well with the panel lines, and all of that has basically brought this through for the actual airframe to be pretty sound now. So it's looking quite good. I'm reasonably happy with it. I thought there was a touch of a seam line coming back on the scoop there, but I don't think it is now. There was before, so I filled that with super glue, and then just sanded it back. Super glue for ease is not the best filler, but for speed, sorry, it's certainly not the best filler. It's extremely brittle, especially if you're going to rescribe over it, and I've had a few problems here and there with that, but that's the next stage now. Probably run in with just something, like I said, water-based, the Perfect Plastic Putty probably, and just run through and just try and fill in some of these strange little areas that I've got around some of the seam lines. Check the trailing edge, and that's all okay. Check the leading edge, as I said before, and the thing that's got to be done now is actually put some panel lines around these gun ports here, then drill those out slightly and actually recess some Albion Alloys tubing in there. Then again, we'll be looking at just adding all of the small details. Then we've got photo etch, I forget what they're called, but they're actuators, I think they are. So we've got etch metal parts that are going to attach to the aileron and then onto the actual wing, so I need to put those on. We've got 4, I think it's above and below on the ailerons and again on the elevators. Under here, these are all lights that will be added all at the end. These are this is PVA in here. That's meant to be a clear panel, so right at the very end I'll hook that out, put the clear piece in. This part here has a photo etch cover to it, so again that will go on. I've checked the rear panel, glass panels that go on the rear part here, and they fit lovely, so that's good. So I just sanded those in, made sure they're going to sit flush, they can go in right at the end. So yeah, we're looking alright. It's one of those things, all of a sudden, I mean, you know, let's not beat around the bush, it's been a lot of work to get to this stage, but all of a sudden we're kind of in the ballpark. So next stage after this, what you'll see is hopefully the whole camouflage will be done, and even in decals by next week. That's the hope. I really want to be having a clear week. So off we got Telford now. We've got basically 2 weeks, and I'd be coming back from Telford at this very point. So I've got a clear week now where I'd like to get all the camouflage, decaling and everything done, and maybe start on the weathering, so that I've got, you know, the entire sort of spare time over the coming weekend to try and nail it down and get it done. And then I've got the spare time for the week running up to Telford to do any finishing touches. I don't want to be at this stage next week, if you know what I mean, so I'm trying to plough on with it. I've also got some other projects that I've been mentioning in the updates that are all going to come towards, come at the same time, if it were, and be done. So it's all looking quite good. It's been a long weekend at this stage to get to this point, but I'm pretty happy with how everything's turning out, so it's good to see some progress. What has also been happening, God, nearly dropped it then, we do not want that, has been getting the other small parts ready. So the undercarriage is a bit of an issue on this one, so I wanted to address that straight away, and what I've done is just put a pin in the leg here with some Albion alloys. I've sprayed them silver now, that's Mr. Colour 8, that's the lacquer silver, and these are essentially done. I've also sprayed the resin wheels with the silver for the hubs and the rear, so I've got masks on here which I'm hoping are going to be roughly okay, so I can just mask the centre portions up and spray the tyre black, and then paint tyre black around the tail wheel as well. We've got the masking on the interior of the canopy, so we don't need to worry from the outside, so we can use the primer. I've actually forgotten that, so in the next pass that needs to be used, and then all brought up to the same standard. We've got the rudder in here as well, which is all sorted. That's going to be pure white, so I'm probably just going to use the white straight away on that. And we've got the undercarriage doors, so again these actually attach to the leg, and I'd like to get these done. How does it work? It's the wheel, I think. How does it? There's probably, this is typical again, it's probably meant to be a hole there. And I think you'll find that the leg goes into the wheel. I'm trying to fit it, it doesn't fit, I've got to drill it out, it just, nothing fits. And then this sits like that, I think, and the wheel is sandwiched between it, something like that. And then this part sits on there like that, I believe. No, it's like that. There, so it sits like that. It's something like that. Anyway, I've done a little bit of testing and it works. We've got the exhaust there as well, which is one of those funny sort of, looks like a dinosaur tail, I suppose. So, all in all, we are really ploughing on with this, and we're past any of the issues. Fingers crossed. Now, if I was to drop this, or something like that, well, all hell's going to break loose, because it would probably disintegrate, and I'm not sure what we do then, so I need to be making sure nothing like that happens, but touch wood, if we have no major issues, next week you should see this with the white, the camouflage, and all of it's added and everything ready to go, and that's the real hope. Colours are the next contentious issue, and it looks as though, thankfully, I've got the ones we need. So, obviously white is white, we're going to be using that. This is the forest green colour, so this is Mr. Colour 302, that's what they say in the listing, so that's the one I'll be using. Then we've got a sky colour that's meant to go on the underside, and I've checked, and I'm pretty sure that this ROM 76 is spot on, so that's what I'm going to do for the underside. Then we've got white on the leading edges above and below, a whole white tail with a forest green section in the middle that was replaced, white rudder, and that's pretty much it. The other camouflage colour is the flat earth, so it's dark earth. So we've got H472, which I might use with the Mr. Aqueous range, but it's not straight RAF dark earth. It's a different shade. So I might actually use this Mr. Colour 22. So this is the lacquer version of this. It's meant to be, but it's obviously quite different. It's remarkably different, to be honest, for trying to be the lacquer version of the same colour. So I think somewhere between the two should be what we're looking for. So that's where we are with that. Hopefully you've enjoyed this update, and stay tuned next week for the next one. I've got an update on the Boomerang. This is the first part. I'm going to hopefully take you right the way through now in this final bit. So the paint is on, and it wasn't without its problems, but it's gone down good enough. I got it to this point and thought I'd better seal it in with a gloss coat just to be on the safe side, and then when it was in the spray booth, actually flicked ROM 65 all over it from another project. So that was a bit of a issue, but I managed to get it off and I've touched it up and we're good to go. So we're just about to head on with the decaling now, and I thought at this point it would be worth telling you what colours we use. So we have got the underside for the sky blue. I have used MRP ROM 65, and I think that's a very effective colour for that. So then on the top, it's been 302 for foliage green from the Mr. Colour range, which again I think is very accurate for the Australian colours. It looks like they were darker, well apparently it's 2 tones darker than the RAF colour. Make of that what you will, but that's so that when they would fade in the tropical climate, they'd come up to the colour they're meant to be. So the brown was the most tricky, and for it I've used the base of Aqueous H72, which is one of the best dark earth colours you can get, and then mixed in, and had a bit of a disaster with the paint as you can see, mixed in XF68, because again it's meant to be a redder and darker version of dark earth. So I'm pretty happy with those colours. They're the approximate sort of shade I was looking for, and I think it's gone on alright. I did mask up and spray I sprayed the whole aircraft white with the white, masked that off, then sprayed the green all over, then masked that off and did the brown, and I did a colour that I wasn't too happy with, so then I went back over with the mix I mentioned and freehanded that over the pattern, and it's reasonably good. I'm pretty happy with it. The white's in and around the back there. There's a few hazy lines here and there, but they'll all be sorted out in the weathering stage, so we're starting to look pretty good. And I did, whilst I was at it, drill out and add in some gun barrels here on the leading edge of the wing, which has improved those, and a few little touch-ups to do in here. Not sure I'm going to go about that, but I'll probably just pick that out with a brush with interior green down there just to make it a little bit more sensible. So now we're on to the decaling, and here's just a close-up of the colours before we show you the next update. I'll go on and do the decaling off camera and then pop it up afterwards, and we can have a look at how that's gone. So we've moved on a little bit. Apologies for the messy bench and the creaking chair, but as you can probably guess, I'm up against it a little bit here, so I just wanted to do an update from this point so I can get this one up to you on the Sunday, and then the next one after this is going to be bringing this all together. So if you're watching this on the Sunday, it's worth checking in on Tuesday of the week that's coming because we'll have more on this one. I'll be doing my weekly show as I usually do, and I'll be going in on this one a little bit more, and I will have been able to do the first panel line wash, etc. By that point. But needless to say, it is all done. Obviously we saw the paintwork, now the decals are on, everything's pretty good. We've got some stenciling underneath on most of the filler caps. A little bit of touch-up work here and there, finished off the prop, and all is okay. So that prop is on a metal piece of tubing that's drilled in there, and it will come off. The canopy has been masked up. Unfortunately, due to the special hobby nature of the kit, it doesn't quite sit nicely on its own. You'd need to do a little bit of work if you wanted to have it closed, but I think we're going to be holding this one back, and even then it needs to just sort of be glued down. It needs to be held down, as it will spring up a little bit, unfortunately. But yeah, all in all, when you get to this stage of this type of build, it's quite nice. This has been a trial in places, as you've seen, but at this point you sort of forgive it for all of those things, and we've got a very nice looking Boomerang, which is one of those aircraft that's sort of bordering on so ugly it's pretty, but you can be the judge of that. Next up after this is obviously, this has had a gloss coat over the decals, matte coat over that on top. All the small parts are added now. There is just the is it the pitot tube? I'm losing my mind, it's been such a long weekend. But we've got the one bit there on the front to go, and that's pretty much everything. So the next stage on this is panel line washes. Then we'll start going through the different stages of weathering. Hopefully we're not going to have to go too far. I've been speaking to the customer, and we may be able to draw a line on it somewhere nearer than actually going too much on it, because it looks pretty nice as a clean build. So thanks for tuning in. We'll bring this to a close next week, so I'll actually be up at the show, but I'll put this one live and have it up ready to go before, with some good detailed pictures, and that'll bring this build series to a close. So I'm very glad that you've followed along so far, and hopefully you look forward to next week's. As I say, a more detailed rundown when I've managed to have a bit of a break from it and think about what I want to say on the Tuesday, and I'll see you then. Okay, and we're done. So not a lot to say on this really for the rundown, other than glad it's finished. It's been a long project, and I'm just about to pack it up now. Pretty happy with the finished result. It's not perfect, it's not my best work, but considering where we had to go with the kit, most of the time was actually spent in construction, unfortunately. So to get a really high finish on it, it was a little bit difficult with the amount of time I wanted to spend on it, and I had a bit of a deadline as well. But yeah, it's pretty good, as you can see. So this is the Boomerang. This one draws this build series to an end, and this one's going off to a customer who I hope will be very happy with it. So that's all good news. And I gather, looking at the comments, that quite a lot of you have found some interesting information from this build as well, so that's also very good from my point of view. So all I've really added is I've got a aerial wire here that runs from the wing and joins onto the actual aerial wire that goes off of the vertical stabiliser and down. I'm not sure if you can see that, but you'll see it in the pictures coming up. And that's it really. The canopy doesn't fit. You'd have to modify that to make it fit. It needs to sit quite a lot lower, like that. But the customer's not worried about it, so we've left it as is. I've attached the rear view mirror. We've got the resin exhausters on now. I think that might have been on the last part. The propeller was added on. It's on a metal rod there, which I just pulled out and can go back on again. It is a bit firm at the end as you pull it, and it is a bit skew whiff, but if you set it up right, it looks fine. And that's about all there is to say really. It was finished with pigments, oils, and various, well, mainly oil washes actually. Oil washes over and over again, pigments on the tyres, cut through that a little bit with some engine fuel and grease stains as well, just to cut through the dust, as that often looks like wheels look like that in the hub. So if you put the pigment on then cut through that again, it gives a nice effect. Let's see if I can show you that a little bit. It's under there. You see the dark in the centre of the wheel? Should show up in the pictures that are about to come. Take the canopy off there because it's easy to lose it. The side windows are now on as well, and they went on no problem. A little bit of test fitting before we got into paint, sorted those out. Just a bit of light sanding, and they worked out no problem as well, which could also be a bit of a tricky area. The undercarriage is being pinned and sort of peg with a peg and a pin, as it were. So drilled with a hole, and there's a peg up in there to give that a bit of rigidity. And that's pretty much everything. So I'm going to leave you now with the reveal photos. I'm going to take a well-earned break and head on off to the show at Telford. So if any of you up there, you won't be seeing this, but you might have seen me over the weekend. This is going up on the Sunday. So hopefully we'll all have a good show. Get back, we'll start another build, and I'll see you in those videos when they all go up. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.